What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this video I want to talk about what could very well be Naughty Dog's next game, and it could very well be a fantasy game. So we do have concept art to back this up, and a little bit of a history too with concept art in the gaming industry. If people don't necessarily know it, I'll go over it. I really quickly though want to thank MTG. He's the one that sent this to me on Twitter, so I really do want to thank him for that. And by the way, if you guys ever see anything, if you guys ever hear anything, whatever, and you want to get it to me in some way, I'll make a video and I'll shout you guys out. Make sure you guys are following me on Twitter. Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle, and while we're there, make sure as always you guys are subscribed here, bell icon turned on if you guys want to subscribe to my second channel, Podcast Now Plus. Link for my Twitter and link for my second channel are both in the description below. Would love to have you guys over there. All right, so look, we have massive Naughty Dog hirings. We talked about that last week, or we know that was happening last week. Neil Druckmann had talked about how he had said, come work for us. We're working on something very cool, even though he can't say it yet. And now look, we know Last of Us Part 2 is getting multiplayer, okay, factions, whatever they want to call it. It'll probably be a standalone thing. We'll have to see if we have to pay for it or not. And then the thing is, do we get a brand new game, or do we get Last of Us Part 3? Now, there's also a couple teams in Naughty Dog. Remember, we've talked about that. It really seems like there's at least two main teams working there, okay? I don't know if technically the opposite team of Neil Druckmann is the multiplayer team for The Last of Us. I don't think so. I feel like that's almost like a third, kind of like a smaller team. Again, we don't necessarily know, but I would wager a bet there's two full teams at Naughty Dog, and then there's some sort of like a multiplayer cult that's there that's working on the multiplayer version, okay? So what that means is maybe we could have the new game and The Last of Us Part 3. I don't want them waiting, even though, not everybody loved The Last of Us Part 2, and I get that. I don't want them waiting like 10 years to make The Last of Us Part 3, especially even with like the ages of these people, like Ashley Johnson getting up there in age, Laura Bailey. I mean, they can't wait like forever to make the final game, let's say, in The Last of Us. But in the meantime, it looks like we're getting a fantasy game. So here's the pictures again from MTG. I'm not even gonna try and say his name. I'll post the picture that does say his name. He is the senior concept artist at Naughty Dog. So this guy is a big deal. He's not like a freelancer. He's not someone they hired yesterday. He's not someone that is, part of like a 50-person team and they have like 5 different layers of bosses, right? He is up there, okay? And one of the things I'd like to point to, okay, for those that are again are unaware of this, because you could say, and I don't blame you for saying, but I am going to correct it, let's say, you could say, okay, well, Alex, it's just concept art, like it doesn't have to mean anything, and concept art can be rejected. Like not all concept art needs to be real and needs to end up happening down the road. That's fair. That second part I would say is the most fair. You can make concept art all day long. It could be the greatest thing of all time. If it doesn't work at some point in like the process, okay, if it doesn't work or you can't get it to work in terms of a game, it's done, okay? You're not going to end up doing it. So that's possible, but you do not just make these for fun. Remember with The Last of Us Part 2, remember Ellie sitting on the tree playing the guitar? She was a lot older. Now remember at the time that came out, okay, that made its way around the internet, that was another very high level employee at Naughty Dog that made that. That concept art came out and they tried to back away from it and say, it's again, like it was kind of for fun. Like he kind of just did it. And it's like, okay, so you're working at a video game company, okay, a developer, okay, a developer as big as Naughty Dog, and this person in particular, senior concept artist, as high up as a level as he is, you're telling me he's just taking a couple casual weekdays when he should be doing like actual work, and he's just throwing together, just like, every like 5 or so minutes, he's just throwing together these pictures? No, he's worked very, very hard on this. He's probably worked for a very, really long time on this, and you don't make these just to throw them away. The Ellie playing the guitar is literally the fundamental principle of The Last of Us Part 2. Her being older, right? The entire idea of what that picture was is The Last of Us Part 2. So, what do we have here? Well, we have 3 pictures, all very again, like fantasy driven. We have a girl in like a knight's armor. We have some sort of like girl with like a a staff that's got like the skeleton or like a skull on the top of it, right? And then we have this last girl too. And in my opinion, she looks a little bit like Tia Dama from Pirates of the Caribbean. Kind of just the first thing that comes to my head when I look at her. Obviously not probably not inspired by it. I'm impressed. So I want to say two things. The second thing is maybe a little controversial, so I won't stay on it too long. But number one, I mean, I love this. I mean, if they want to do a fantasy game, I mean, if you think about it, The Last of Us and Uncharted are similar. Although they are very, very different, there is a lot that's very similar about them, specifically in terms of like how they play. Sure, again, there are a lot of differences there, but you can tell if you played Uncharted, if you played like Uncharted 3, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, The Last of Us Part 2, you would probably know, and if you didn't know anything else about games in general, but you played those 4 games, you would probably tell me that they were all made by the same team. Now, 2 of them, doubles. They're both doubles of each other. So obviously, you know that the same team probably worked on Uncharted 3 and 4, and the same team probably worked on Last of Us 1 and 2. But would you be able to tell me that they made all of them? You probably would, because these games are very closely related to each other in terms of how they play, okay? If you did a fantasy game, you'd have to imagine it would be very, in terms of like how it's designed, literally how it's designed. Even if it's not, by the way, open world, if they want to tell a linear, even like now Last of Us Part 2 at times was actually a pretty open-ish kind of world, right? You had actually a couple opportunities to go in a lot of different areas, but let's say like an Uncharted 4 or even like the Last of Us kind of area where it is pretty darn linear, okay? That's fine, but like the mechanics of how you play this game would be right there, you'd probably have some sort of sword combat, you'd probably have some sort of magic thing going on there, right? That is, to me, I really hope this is real. I think it is real. I think it's probably their next game, and I want it like right now. The other thing that I'm not going to make, again, too big of a deal about, but I will throw it out there, is they're all girls. Now, that could get me in trouble immediately, so let me clarify. I'm not anti-women. I'm not anti-playing as a girl in a game. In fact, we just had a video talking about this, or we will later today, talking about that gaming journalist that talked about it. As long as they're good characters, it's fine. That's probably the easiest way of boiling it down. I don't want them telling me, this is what I'm worried about. This is the only thing, because all we have right now is concept art. The only thing that worries me is if they tell me that I need to play this game, or I'm going to like this game, or I'm going to like these characters because they're girls in a fantasy kind of setting. That doesn't make you immediately like them. And I go into more detail on that on the next video. So I'll kind of just leave it there. Again, if they're good characters, okay, which by the way, Naughty Dog in general has done that, all right, even with like The Last of Us, like Ellie, female, but an amazing, I would say, amazing character. Uncharted has a lot of amazing characters. I'm not fully sold on how they did Nadine. There's a couple things in there that kind of just, she's strong and powerful because she just is strong and powerful, okay? But again, that's kind of aside. I'm very excited for this. I really do want this game to exist. I think something like this to kind of just be in the middle of, you get Last of Us, say this year, we get Last of Us Factions, okay? So we get back into the world of The Last of Us, we're playing a game we're all familiar with, and then we get this in like 2 or 3 years, and then we get The Last of Us Part 3 in another 2 or 3 years. I mean, that would be quite the shakeup, you know what I mean? That would be very, very different, and I would be very, very impressed with them just doing all kinds of different stuff. All that's left, by the way, is for Sony Santa Monica, for God of War, for them to do that sci-fi game that they were going to do, and remember it was canceled and all that stuff, which people believe Cory Barlog has re-picked it up, so we'll have to see if that ends up being real down the line. It's cool. It's cool when you have developers like Naughty Dog, again, like, here's what I want. I just want this game to be different from Uncharted and The Last of Us. Again, obviously their stories are different. Obviously their characters are different. Obviously the mood and the setting and different, lots of different things are different. But I want this game to literally feel different. I think what would make it the most interesting is if you gave this to me, and if I didn't know anything about games, you gave it to me, I would not be able to tell you this came from Naughty Dog. You know what I mean? Where it's like it just plays, and it's still amazing. Like, it's got to be good. Obviously, I don't want this game to suck, but like it plays so differently that it's like, who even made this? Then you tell me Naughty Dog. I'm like, holy Jesus, are you serious? So that's what I want. All right. So let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you think? Do you think this concept art is actually it? Do you think this is what their next game is? I'll tell you again, I truly do believe so. So let me know in the comments. What do you think? As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. Again, if you guys want to subscribe to my second channel, Podcast Now Plus, link for that's in the description. And if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, Podcast Now 15. Again, if you guys see anything, if you guys want me to talk about anything, message me, at me, whatever on Twitter. And if it's something I'll do or I end up doing, I will shout you out and we'll go from there. Okay. Thank you all. Obviously, comments and YouTube work as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.